It is Wednesday, the 18th of October, and you're looking horrifying as hell, which is absolutely beautiful. Thank you for joining me in another video of 31 Days of Halloween. Peter now is sleeping in his bed, and he hears banging on the door, and he thinks it's the morning, so he pulls the covers off of his head. But it is still nighttime. He says, "Mother," but nobody's there. And all of a sudden, he hears father say, "Peter." He looks over, and his father is standing in the corner with his eyes all rolled back and his teeth clattering. And he stops and he looks up at Peter and he says, "Look what you did to your mother." Now Peter looks up down the hallway and he sees his mother standing there with demon eyes. She starts to run at him and the lights go out and she disappears, but there's footsteps running towards him, but nothing's happening. And all of a sudden you hear footsteps running all around everywhere and bangs on the wall. And then out of the darkness, his mother jumps on top of his bed and starts to choke him. He wakes up as his mother is holding him and she is saying, "You were screaming. You were having a nightmare. Do you remember what it was?" And he thinks back, and his mother was choking him in his dream. He just looks up at her and says, "I can't remember." She says, "Well, that's good. It can't hurt you now." And he looks up at his mother, and now he is even more scared. Peter now is talking to the little girl in the wall, and he's asking her, "Why are you in there?" She says, "Mother and father hate me. They put me in here, and they will kill me. And when they do, then it will be your turn, and they will put you in the walls." Peter says, "No, there's no way mother and father has ever killed anybody." And that's when the little girl says, "You are wrong, Peter. They've already done this, and I will tell you where they buried the little girl they killed. It's out in the pumpkin garden, and I'll tell you where." Mother now is upstairs and she's moving the grandfather clock and she's holding an empty glass bottle of water. Meanwhile, Peter's down in the pumpkin patch digging, and he comes upon a white rock and he starts moving all the dirt around it, and it appears to be a human skull. Mother now looks out of the window and says, "Peter, what are you doing?" And he starts to hurry up. He tries to cover up the dirt. He's covering it up with dirt all around his hands. And his mother steps outside the door and says, "Peter, what are you doing?" Peter turns around holding a pumpkin in his hand. He says, "Since I can't go trick-or-treating, Mom, can I at least carve a pumpkin?" The little girl now is saying, "It was Halloween when they locked me in here. There was a trick-or-treater that came to our door and I asked her for help. She saw me. And then our parents, they killed her, Peter. And I do not want to end up like that little girl." Peter says, "I'm going to get you out of here. You're family, and we're going to be a family, a real one." "But how?" the little girl says. "I know somebody I can call." And he pulls out his teacher's phone number that was written on top of the math test. Mother now is downstairs cutting up the pumpkin. Peter runs into her bedroom to use her phone. He picks up the phone and he dials 2 numbers, and then he hears a knock. And he moves away from the phone and he looks out the door to see if his mother is coming. She is not, so he goes back to the phone and he dials the rest of the phone numbers. And then he hears a knock and nobody is coming. The teacher now picks up the phone and Peter says, "I need your help." All of a sudden, a knock comes from behind him, and he looks around, but nobody's there. But he turns all the way around, and his mother is standing there as he hangs up the phone. His mother is looking right into his eyes, and the phone rings again. She goes over and she picks it up. She says, "Hello." She's like, "Who's this?" "This is Peter's mother." "Well, this is Miss Divine." "And did Peter just try to call me?" She said, "Yes, he did. He misses you so much, and he wanted to tell you that." So I said, "Well, Peter, why don't you just give her a ring?" And Peter is staring at his mother the whole time, and he knows every word that he is telling Miss Divine. She is lying. And as she hangs up the phone, she says, "I'm sorry to bother you. I hope you have a happy Halloween." "That was a very bad thing, Peter." "I'm sorry. You called a stranger. She doesn't love you the way that your father and I do. I am very disappointed in you." And then she puts him into his room. But before she shuts the door, she notices the wallpaper. "What is this?" He says, "It's nothing." And then she gets on her knees, and then she starts to feel the wallpaper, and she opens it up, and she sees a hole. Mother says, "I cannot believe you." And her eyes get really big as she starts to look down the hole. And now Mother is frantic, and she's holding her arms and hands up against the wall. As she leaves the room, her hands follow along the long hallway, and she looks back at Peter and says, "What did she tell you?" "Just wait until your father gets home." And now the little girl tells Peter, "I know they're going to hurt us, Peter. I know that they're going to kill us, Peter. We have to do something." And now Father walks in, and he says to Peter, "Well, there's something that we got to do tomorrow. We got to dig up the pumpkin patch because it has gotten rotten."